Hello, everyone. Before we dive in, I want you to think about the last time you sat through a lecture and realized halfway through that your mind had wandered. Now imagine flipping that experience so the lecture happens on your own time and class becomes the space where learning actually comes to life. That idea is the center of today's presentation. Today, I will be talking about the flipped classroom model, what it looks like, where it works well, and where it could fall short. By the end, you should have a clear sense of how this approach changes the role of both students and instructors and why it has become such a widely discussed teaching strategy in education today. I'll start by briefly explaining what the flipped classroom model is and how it works. This includes what students typically do before class and how class time is then used differently compared to a traditional lecture-based approach. Next, I will analyze the main strengths of the flipped classroom, such as increased engagement and flexibility, along with common challenges like student preparedness and access to technology. Then I will share a few concrete examples of how the flipped classroom looks in real classrooms, so that you can better visualize how instructors apply this model in practice. In the end, I will highlight the key points to remember and offer a few takeaways about when and why the flipped classroom model can be an effective teaching strategy. When we hear the term flipped classroom, it sounds like something dramatic is happening. In reality, it is a simple shift where learning happens. Instead of using class time to deliver information, students engage with the content before the class, and class time is used to apply, practice, and interact. This small change has a big impact, which is what we will be starting to explore here. The flipped classroom model developed over time according to the article History of the Flipped Classroom Model and Uses of the Flipped Classroom Concepts in the International Journal of Curriculum and Instructional Studies. The flipped classroom, sometimes called the reversed or inverted classroom, became a recognized concept in educational literature beginning in the year 2000. Although ideas like it existed earlier, scholars usually point to the early 2000s as the time when it was first formally defined. In 2000, two key studies helped shape the model. At Cedarville University, Dr. Baker described a classroom flip aimed at moving basic content delivery outside of class so the classroom time could be used for active learning. This included more interaction among students and more teacher guidance rather than straight lecture. Around that same time, researchers at the University of Miami introduced the inverted classroom, encouraging students to study material like readings and videos before class and use class meetings for discussion and activities. The flipped classroom did not become widely noticed right away. Its popularity grew strongly after 2007, when two high school chemistry teachers in the United States began recording their lessons for students online. As they shared these videos and noticed positive student engagement, the approach attracted broader interest. There were books later published about the model which further increased its use in many subjects and levels of education. Since its emergence, research interest in the flipped classroom has continued to grow. Studies have increased steadily since 2012, showing its spread into many educational settings. At the same time, multiple terms have been used to describe their approach, including flipped classroom, flipped learning, classroom flip, and flipped pedagogy. Among these, flipped classroom remains the most commonly used. In a flipped classroom, students interact with lectures or learning materials before coming to class. Preparation may include readings, videos, or other online content that introduce key concepts. The intent is to move foundational learning outside of class so that valuable class time can be used for active engagement. In-class activities focus on things like discussion, collaboration, problem solving, and peer learning. These activities help deepen understanding beyond what students gained from preparing beforehand. A typical flipped class includes a cycle of 4 basic elements. First, introduce the task, where the instructor explains what students are expected to do before and during the class. Clear expectations helps students get ready for the active learning that will occur. Second, students prepare outside of class by engaging with the inside materials. This preparation might involve watching short video segments, reviewing readings, or completing preparatory tasks that make them ready for in-class work. Third, instructors assess learning and readiness before the in-class session through low-stakes quizzes or short assignments. This allows both students and instructors to see where understanding is strong and where more help is needed. Finally, students take part in in-class activities that build their preparation. These are designed to promote collaboration, dialogue, and higher-level thinking. rather than passive learning. Now that we have looked at where the flipped classroom model came from and how it is structured, the next step is to consider how it actually works in practice. Understanding the history and basic elements helps set the foundation, but it does not tell the whole story. In this next section, we will explore the benefits and challenges of the flipped classroom, focusing on what research and instructors report about student learning and engagement and implementation in real classroom settings. One key benefit of the flipped classroom is that it frees up class time for deeper learning. When students review core material before class, instructors can focus on problem solving, discussion, and guided practice during class, which supports stronger understanding. The model also promotes active learning. Students are more engaged in class through collaboration and application rather than passively listening to lectures. This approach encourages participation and critical thinking. Flipped classrooms allow students to learn at their own pace outside of class. Pre-class videos or materials can be paused, reviewed, and revisited, which helps students build confidence with foundational concepts. Finally, the flipped classroom model supports a more student-centered classroom. Instructors can identify learning gaps in real time and provide targeted support, while students take greater responsibility for their learning. While the flipped classroom model has clear benefits, it also presents several challenges for both students and instructors. One major challenge is access to technology. Because students are expected to engage with videos or online materials before class, those without reliable internet or devices may struggle to keep up, creating equity concerns. Another challenge is student accountability. The model depends on students completing pre-class work independently. When students arrive unprepared, in-class activities become less effective and learning can stall. From the instructor perspective, flipped courses require significant planning. Designing pre-class materials, active learning activities, and assessments can increase workload, especially for instructors new to the model. Some students may also resist the shift away from traditional lectures. Increased responsibility and active participation can feel uncomfortable at first, particularly for students accustomed to passive learning. Technology plays a key role in the flipped classroom and can both support and hinder learning. One major benefit is that it allows students to access instructional materials before class. Videos and digital resources let students learn at their own pace and revisit difficult concepts, helping them arrive prepared for class activities. Technology also supports assessment and feedback. Online quizzes and learning platforms allow instructors to check student readiness and identify areas that need clarification before class begins. This helps instructors plan more effective in-class activities. At the same time, technology can create challenges. As mentioned previously, not all students have reliable access to devices or internet, which can limit their ability to complete pre-class work and raise equity concerns. Technology can also increase instructor workload. Creating or selecting quality digital materials and managing technical issues requires time and support. Overall, technology is most effective when it improves access and preparation without becoming a barrier to learning. To use the flipped classroom model effectively, instructors should follow several key best practices. Begin with clear and focused pre-class materials. Short videos, readings, or guided content help students understand core ideas before class and make preparation more manageable. Choose technology that is simple and accessible. Platforms should work across devices and not require high bandwidth, so all students can participate without barriers. Include readiness checks before class. Low-stakes quizzes or brief reflections encourage preparation and help instructors identify areas that need more attention. Use class time for active learning. Discussion problems, problem solving, and collaborative activities allow students to apply concepts rather than listen to repeated lectures. Finally, pace the implementation. Starting small and gathering student feedback helps instructors manage workload and refine flipped approaches over time. When researching examples of the flipped classroom model, I found a PBS video describing a school that has fully adopted the flipped classroom model. The school featured is Clintondale High School in Michigan, one of the first schools in the United States to flip all of its classes. In this school, students are expected to watch instructional videos or lectures at home before they come to class. Instead of listening to lectures in class, students arrive prepared with basic understanding of the material. Once students are in class, teachers use the time very differently from a traditional classroom. Class time focuses on collaborative learning, problem solving, and support. Students work through assignments together and have opportunities to ask questions or get help from teachers as they practice and apply what they have learned at home. The shift changes the teacher's role from primarily lecturing to facilitating learning. Teachers can spend more time working individually with students who need help, supporting deeper understanding and guiding group activities. The video highlights how this flipped model allows students to engage actively in class with peers and teachers, reducing the frustration that often comes with traditional homework and making learning more collaborative and interactive. Since I work at a medical school, I'll also go over a real-world example relevant to medical students. In the anatomy courses, embryology is often challenging because it involves complex timelines, three-dimensional development, and unfamiliar terminology. In a flipped classroom model, students begin by engaging with embryology content before class. This usually includes short recorded lectures, diagrams, and guided readings that introduce key development stages and structures. By the time students come to lecture, they have already had the initial exposure to concepts like germ layer formation, organ development, and critical windows of development. Instead of spending class time listening to a full lecture, instructors use that time to clarify difficult processes, reinforce spatial understanding, and connect embryology to clinical relevance. During class, students might also work through labeled diagrams, trace developmental sequences in small groups, or discuss clinical cases such as congenital anomalies linked to embryologic errors. Faculty circulate to answer questions, correct misconceptions, and emphasize high-yield concepts for exams and future clinical practice. This approach helps students move beyond memorization. It allows them to actively apply embryology concepts, which is especially important in medical education where understanding development directly supports pathology and patient care. As we wrap up, here are a few key takeaways about the flipped classroom model. First, the flipped classroom is not just about using videos. It is a shift in how class time is used, moving basic content delivery outside the classroom and reserving in-person time for active learning and application. Second, when implemented thoughtfully, the model can increase engagement, support deep understanding, and allow instructors to provide more targeted feedback. At the same time, the flipped classroom requires careful planning, clear expectations, and attention to technology access and student readiness. Finally, successful flipped classrooms tend to start small, use simple tools, and continuously adapt based on student feedback and learning needs.